Well, welcome to our session today on Blackboard 2, Building Your Blackboard Course. My name is Jason Rohde, and let me go ahead and I'm going to turn on my video camera here so that you can see me sitting in my office here in DeKalb, Illinois. Hi, everybody, and glad that you joined us here for today. There should be a video window that has popped open for you, and if you can resize that, if you put your mouse in the lower right-hand corner, you can shrink it down if you'd like. You can also, clicking in the title of the window where it says Wimba Classroom Video, if you click on that, you can click and drag. You can move that window around. You can minimize it or even close it if you'd like. So I'll leave the video open for here a little bit, and then actually when we get into kind of the demonstration part of the session, I'll turn my video off just to help conserve some bandwidth for those that perhaps are connecting from a slightly slower connection. So welcome to our session today. Looking at Blackboard, our online, this is actually our very first online Blackboard 2 workshop. And again, my name is Jason Rohde, and I am the Assistant Director of the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center, and pleased to see several familiar names here in the list, and a few others, perhaps new ones as well. So glad to have you with us here today. So our workshop today is, this is a follow-up to the Blackboard 1 Introduction to Blackboard work we offer as a hands-on, face-to-face workshop every month here on campus at Northern. And we decided during the summer with so many of you faculty out and about, we thought we would try offering this Blackboard 2, which is our follow-up to Blackboard 1, actually offering that online. So this is a bit of an experiment today. Looking to had some great turnout here, so I'm glad that all of you are with us here today. Before we jump in and talk about this particular workshop, I'm curious to just get a sense, a little bit of kind of your previous experience with this platform that we happen to be using here today called Wimba Classroom. And so I just have a couple of quick polling questions that I'm going to put. This is a way in which you can gain a sense from your participants when you're conducting an online session like this. You can get a sense of their previous experience, or you can actually quiz them as well throughout a lecture if you'd like. So I've got a question that I've just put up here just for myself to get a sense of who's connected today and have a microphone, and just curious to see if anyone does have that. So if you could just click the yes or no option and then click the submit button, that will in essence register your vote, and I can see who happens to have a microphone connected. And so I'll go ahead and I'm going to publish those results out. Looks like Ursula is the only one that does have a microphone, and that's totally fine. You need to have a microphone to participate today. Certainly, Ursula, if you'd like to ask a question at any point as we're going along, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll turn the microphone over to you, and you can ask that question. Another question I'll put out just to get a sense of where everyone's connecting from today. I'm always curious when we conduct these online workshops to get a sense of where people connect. Are you home? Are you in the office? Are you maybe at a computer lab somewhere? Maybe you're at the library, or maybe some other location, internet cafe. Maybe you're at Panera enjoying a sandwich right now while you're listening to us. But it's always interesting to get a sense of where people are connecting from. So look, a nice mix. 3 of you are in the office, a couple of you at home, someone else is somewhere else. It's amazing with the technology today. You can even be connected to the web from anywhere. Wouldn't be surprised if someone's at the beach right now. So anyway, that's helpful to know as well. And I'm curious, a couple of other quick questions here. Interested if you've ever participated in a web conference session before. Have you ever participated in a virtual online session such as this? It doesn't have to be this particular technology, but any other webinars or similar type sessions. I'm just curious to have you weigh in on that. So it looks like everyone has. We'll go ahead and take a look, and it's mixed, and that's fantastic. Glad to hear that some of you, you're not new to this technology, and others, this is your first experience. So piggybacking off of that, have you ever used Wimba Classroom before? Now, Wimba Classroom, this tool that we're using today, it's actually one of the tools within Blackboard that you can use. We're using it today as kind of a standalone tool. Notice that you didn't have to log into Blackboard in order to access this online session today, but Wimba Classroom is fully integrated with Blackboard here at Northern, and it's very easy for you to use this technology in your own teaching, in your own Blackboard courses. You can use it for online office hours. Other faculty use it to provide actually online lectures for students, or maybe they'll raise a face-to-face lecture with an online lecture, or perhaps have a guest speaker speak to your students, where that person can be anywhere in the world with an internet connection, and if you set up a meeting time, that individual can speak to your class. So there's a lot of great applications for this type of technology, and I'm always curious to see, who's having with it, and no one's ever used it before. And so I think what I may do is take a moment and maybe share with you a little bit more about this particular tool before we jump in. So give me a moment to pull up a couple of slides here. I think I've got something on, let's see. I'm going to quickly upload. Let me put a slide up. You can all just give me a moment here. I thought I had this slide, but I don't, so I'm just going to upload it on the fly. One of the neat features about Wimba Classroom is you can upload content on the fly to share with students. And so let me find now the right slide here for you. That's the feature we wanted right there. So since none of you have used Wimba Classroom before, let me just give you a very quick overview to the interface that you're looking at, and just very, very briefly highlight the features here. I think helpful as we move along during the workshop today. So I'm just going to highlight these as I talk about them. First of all, the largest area on your screen that you see is called the content frame. And so this area of the window, this is where, as the presenter, I can put content. So I have a PowerPoint slide right now that you're looking at, and I was able to annotate over top of that using a drawing tool that I have as the presenter. So this content frame, this is where you can put PowerPoint. In a bit, when I actually go into Blackboard and start to demonstrate a few things, actually you're going to see my screen in this content frame. But this is where you as the instructor control what goes in this content. Then to the right of the content frame, and you don't have this right now in your window, you have some white space there, but this is the presenter's console. So as the presenter, this is where the various features are posted, where you can control what content is available. You can start the archive. You can move students into breakout rooms. There's lots of the specific tools and features are provided in this content, or this presenter's console on the right. Then below the content frame is the text chat frame, and this is where you've already found where you can type in responses and ask questions and have conversations as we're going through the session today. So this is where it provides the participants a way to interact even if they don't have an audio capability on their computer. Then to the right of the text chat frame is the participant frame. And so this is where you see the list of all the participants in the room. You see how many of us are here, and you see different statuses as we, if you raise your hand or if you put a check mark for some informal polling, you see those results here in the participant frame. Then to the right of the participant frame is the branding frame. And right now you see the NIU logo. In a bit, I'll put my picture there so you'll see that. Instead, this is the area where you as the instructor can control. You can put your own department logo. So that's the branding frame. And then finally, this bar that's kind of in the middle between the content frame at the top and then these other frames below, this is the audio and links bar. And this is where you see like an icon for video. You see what looks like a little telephone. And this is actually where if you're experiencing audio issues during once you're connected, if you click on that telephone, and if you want to go ahead and click on it just to see what happens, you'll see a little a panel that kind of pops up that says simulcast. And there's a phone number and a PIN, and you can actually call in that phone number and enter that PIN, and you can hear the audio and actually participate over the phone. So this is a great way for students if they are out and about and away from their computer, they can actually call in and hear the audio from a session and participate. So it is not a toll-free call. You will use distance or minutes on your cell phone if you call this number, but it is a nice option to provide those that want to take advantage of using audio in that way. There are some other options there that we won't take time to talk about here today. But that gives you a quick overview of kind of the overall layout and base here within Wimba Classroom. So with that, let me hop back to our slides here for today. So a couple of objectives, my objectives for this workshop, and really where this workshop came about was after conducting a Blackboard 1 session, getting feedback from faculty who said, it was great to get an overview of kind of what Blackboard can do and what the features are, but I have more questions. I'd like a little more assistance in actually getting started in my Blackboard course. I have some questions that I'd like answered. Could you help me? And so we came up with the idea to offer kind of this follow-up workshop that would be more informal, would be more based on the direction of the questions and the needs of those who attend. And so really my goal was to provide a follow-up session here today where we can talk about and kind of review some of the preliminary steps and things and items that were covered in Blackboard 1, but also then dig deeper into specifically how do you set up the structure for the course and how do you get started developing the framework and organizing how you're going to use the course. And typically when we offer this in a face-to-face environment, we have you bring content that you want to put in your own Blackboard course and then have kind of an open lab time where you can upload content, you can start to set up your own course, and then as you have questions, we can answer those questions. So as we're doing this online here today, and I can't look over each of your shoulders, so to speak, and as you're working in your own course, what I thought we would do instead is still answer the questions that you may have so that after the session today, you'll feel confident to be able to go and begin working in your own Blackboard course. And so that's kind of what I want to do here today is not only provide some general overview and information for everybody, but then also be sure that I'm able to answer everyone's questions here during the session today. And then if you have more questions, I'm certainly you can follow up with me individually after the workshop. I'd be happy to meet with you and face-to-face and through some of the additional questions you might have. So first of all, I want to throw out a few preliminary questions for you to think about. And these aren't questions that you necessarily have to answer right now, at least not publicly, but these are things for you to think about, questions for you to consider. When I think back to the very first time I taught with Blackboard, I had used Blackboard as a student, so I was there with it from a student perspective. And when I had an opportunity to teach with it for the first time, I was really excited because I thought, well, this is my big chance to to maybe use Blackboard a bit better than I had seen modeled for me in some of the other courses. And so I wanted to jump in and get started. And so I went in and I started setting things up and posting content, and I did a whole bunch in the course, and then took a step back and thought to myself, realized that some of the things I was using tools just for the sake of using them, hadn't really thought through purpose for why I was using some of the tools that I had set up. And in the long run, I had to go back and undo some of the things I had set up. I wanted to do some reorganizing, make things work a bit better, and I wasted some time in that exuberance and excitement of just jumping in and getting started. So I want to throw out a few questions that I think, had I answered these questions before jumping in and using Blackboard for the first time, I would have saved some time. You can always undo any of the setup that you do in a Blackboard course, but these are a few questions that I think will help guide you get started yourself in Blackboard. And so the first question that I'll propose is, why are you using Blackboard? Why are you here for this workshop? What's your motive? And that's something really that I think it's important that you articulate that. You probably have reasons. Maybe you've never really thought specifically why. And we have faculty that come to workshops and they're here. They really don't know why they're here to use Blackboard, other than students are saying and complaining, well, why aren't you using Blackboard? So they're there to learn to use Blackboard because they're getting this pressure from students. Other faculty come with very specific purposes in mind. They want to cut down on printing out handouts, or they want to post grades securely. They may want to communicate better with their students, or perhaps be able to offer a class easier off campus. So there may be a lot of different purposes for using Blackboard, but it's really important that you identify for yourself what that purpose is, and overall, why are you using it? Are you just posting information? Are you wanting to collect assignments from your students? Do you want to easily post their grades and collaborate with them, or have them collaborate with each other? But whatever that purpose happens to be, as you think about that and put that into a measurable and very specific list, if you list out those reasons, the purpose for why you're using Blackboard and the purpose for that course is going to direct the rest of the development steps. So as you get started in Blackboard, it's not just one cookie cutter approach that meets the needs of everybody. It really does depend on your purpose for using Blackboard. And so that's going to guide kind of how you go about setting things up. And so I'm going to provide some recommendations here today that for the most part apply to most faculty, but they may not specifically apply to you. There might be a few things that maybe because of your particular reason for using Blackboard may not directly apply. But just keep that in mind, that the approach every person takes is a little bit different depending on why you're using Blackboard. A couple of other questions to think about once you've articulated for yourself why you're using Blackboard would then be to look at, how are you going to structure your course? Thinking about how you already structure your course. And I like to use the analogy of file folders. I think each of us, you probably have some way that you organize your course content already, and the way in which you prepare for your courses. Maybe you organize things by weeks. You take a calendar, you've got 16 weeks, and so you break your course down by weeks. Or others, maybe you break it down by chapters of a textbook that you use with your students for a particular course. You may do it topically by units or modules, but have some way in which you organize your content that organization structure is something that you're going to want to replicate in Blackboard so that it just doesn't become this, uh, repository, this one location where you dump all of this content and there's no structure there for your students. You do need to provide some consistent structure, some organization for them, so that they can see a structured environment. And I can show you a couple of examples of ways in which some faculty have organized courses to give you an idea. But really have an organized structure, a way in which you plan to organize your course, and build that structure out. And then from there, you're able to provide information in an orderly way. And if it's easy to locate the content, you're much more likely that they're going to make use of the content and the resources that you post. Then you also need to ask yourself the question, what are you going to require the students to do or complete in Blackboard? Think for yourself, what are those things that are going to be required? For me, one of the things that I require of my students, anything Blackboard, is if they have a general question about the course, I set up in the discussion board what I call a help forum. And I tell my students, if you have a question, a general question about the course, you've got a question about an assignment, expectation, or whatever, post that question there, as long as it's not of a private, personal nature. If it's a general question, chances are somebody else in the course has that same question. And so by posting it in a public forum, I can respond to it publicly in one spot rather than responding to that same question in email over and over again from my students. And so that's something I require of my students. And that first week or so of the class, if I get emails that are general questions for students, I politely ask them to post those in Blackboard to the question and answer forum or the help forum. And I tell them that that's where I'll respond publicly. And about after a week or so, it really cuts down on the amount of email that I'm dealing with from students because they're asking those questions in a public forum, and I can respond there. And then if they ask the same question in an email, I can ask the student, well, please check that help forum first for the answer. And really provide students an opportunity to be kind of self-learners where they can take some initiative and try to find the answer themselves. It also provides an opportunity for those students in the class. You always have a couple of students that are those go-getters, self-starters. They always have an answer and have the right answer to a question. It provides an opportunity for those students to help one another. And so I, as the instructor, don't have to be the only purveyor of the knowledge, but I can allow the students to start to help one another. And so that's something that I require of my students. And there are certainly other things that I require and certain things you may choose to require of your students and how they use Board. But decide what those are and be very clear with yourself and even write them down so that you have those listed as you get started in Blackboard. You also may want to consider what optional activities you might want to make available for the students or optional features. For example, I always set up a kind of a cyber cafe or just a social forum where the students can interact with each other in a social way that's not specific to the course. That's an optional activity that they can choose to make use of if they wish. And then next, as the instructor, how are you going to plan to use Blackboard? As far as you think about the use of Blackboard, is this to save you time? Are you going to use this to email your students? You can actually email them from Blackboard. You can use this Wimba Classroom technology that we're using here today to conduct online office hours or other types of online lectures or presentations for your students. But be clear with yourself. How are you going to use this? And don't feel as though you have to jump in and use all the features or all the tools at once. Start small. Use the tool that best meets your needs initially, and then once you're comfortable with that, you can move on to try another tool. So once you've answered those questions, then you're ready to jump in and start to build the framework of your Blackboard course. And by this, I mean the organizational structure of your course and kind of setting things up and having a course entry point, making sure you know where students are coming into the course and starting to set up the structure and the course menu. Also involved with building the framework is setting the course availability. By default here at Northern, when you request a Blackboard course and it's created for you, it is unavailable, which means you can access the course as the instructor, you can configure it, but you have to actually make the course available for your students before they're able to access what you have there. So with that, I think we're going to jump down. Let me go into Blackboard and highlight a couple of these items, and then we'll come back here and I'm going to then ask at that point for questions to see what specific questions you might have. So what I'd like you to do right now, if you haven't already done so, is maximize your screen. And by this, I mean clicking the little icon in the upper right-hand corner. Don't click the X, the red X button, but there should be a button if you're using Firefox or Internet Explorer. It looks like a little box. If you are using Safari Mac, it'll be an icon that looks like a little green dot, but that will maximize your screen so that in a moment when I share my my computer screen with you, it'll be easiest for you to see within Wimba Classroom. I'm also at this point going to go ahead and turn off my video, and you can close that video window. I will, however, go ahead and I'll put my image down in the branding frame so that you can still see me there, the picture, so to speak. So with that, give me just a moment to actually go ahead and turn on the application sharing. And in just a moment, you're going to see my my screen here in Wimba Classroom. So you should now see my screen. And if you can see my screen, if you could just click on the little check mark icon again down under your name just to confirm that you can see that. Very good. And I'll just wait a moment here to make sure that everyone can, in fact, see my screen. Here I'm logged into Blackboard. And this is one of our training courses. Those of you that have attended Blackboard 1, you know that we give you the chance to work in a sandbox training course to kind of experiment with getting started with Blackboard. And fantastic. Looks like everybody can, in fact, see my screen. So here in Blackboard, this is kind of a default course that you get. Let me show you an example of a couple of sample courses just to get a sense of how they can vary and that you do have a lot of control as far as the structure. This first example is a sample blended course taught several years ago by one of my former colleagues. This is an English course, and she's provided this as example, shared this with us and allowed us to share this with faculty that are interested. And here you can just customize her course. She has an attractive banner, really adds some personality to the course. She's customized the buttons on the left to reflect the colors of her banner, and even removed some buttons that she didn't need, added ones that she wanted to have. And so she has her information organized here. She has a button for herself, information about herself for her students. She has, in Blackboard, there's a course information area that by default is created. And this is an area in the Blackboard where you can post general information about the course. So here she has information about the final project. She also has information about the final exam. And scrolling down, she has even information about her group meetings. This is where you post the syllabus. General information about the course would go here in course information. And then within course documents, the idea with course documents is this is where you would customize and create these organized folders or areas where you would kind of chunk content for your students. So here you can see she organized this course by weeks. She had a folder for her initial class session. She taught this in a blended format where she had an initial class meeting. She had a meeting partway through the course, and then a final meeting. But she had an initial class session folder where she posted information for the students, an overview, objectives, and then she had a technology skills survey that she had to complete during their first class session together, so they got familiar with the technology. And so she put that all in a folder. And then for each week of the course, you can see she put the date, and she actually even also put what was contained within that folder. So when the students go to week 1, they can easily see what they'll find in that folder. And it's very easy for them to be able to read instructions, objectives, and then any assignments that she's using within Blackboard, having students submit things, for example, through Blackboard, or perhaps complete a commentary, for example. Here, these are assignments. These are actually set up where the students can just click the View Complete link, and they can actually submit that directly here from within Blackboard. So it makes it very clear for the students, what's due when. They just go to that week folder, and everything they need for that week is located there. So that's one example of kind of the structure. I'll share with you another example. This is a course that I taught recently. And this was a fully online course. We didn't ever meet together. But again, you see a banner. You see the menu has changed, the colors, so you can personalize the look and feel of the course a bit. I have a few different links. I went with text links rather than buttons. But again, a course information area, I called it course info. And here's where I actually posted the syllabus, for example. The students could click, and this happened to be an HTML syllabus, but it could have been a PDF file. The students can view and print off. Also within course information, I put the course schedule. The students could print that out. And then within modules, I broke things down. I called them modules, but again, I actually broke things down by weeks. And so within that folder, again, everything that the students needed to view was listed there. In this course, I used a few YouTube videos each week as kind of discussion starters. And so in Blackboard, you can actually post those right within the course. Students can click and can actually view those right within the Blackboard course. So you can see they can play it right here and leave Blackboard. So another way of structuring things, you can structure and put that content right there within your course. So as you think about your own course structure, here we are again in the kind of the default Blackboard course, and what you'll see initially is you have this menu on the left. These are the default items that show up, and by default, when you go into Blackboard, you have this announcements area where you can post announcements for your students. And this is called the default entry point, which means when students access the course, this is what they see. You can customize this so they don't see just announcements, but they go to somewhere else in the course. However, I recommend that you leave announcements as that default entry point for the students. So when they come into Blackboard, they'll see that announcement. Then we have some other items here then going down the list. So announcements, staff information. This is an area where you can post some information about yourself, contact information, and so forth for your students. There's that course information and course documents areas that I already talked. By default, you have also an area that's called assignments. The idea with assignments is this is where you could post those assignments separate from the content areas of the course. Now, there are two major philosophies here when it comes to assignments and posting those in Blackboard. One is to keep them separate. So using this assignments folder or content area and having within it all of the assignments for your students. So all the assignments are within that area, separate from perhaps unit content that you may post or other links. There's another frame of thought that in which you keep all of the content and assignments for a given week or module all together in that given course documents area. And for those that take that approach, and recently that's the approach I've been taking as I'm teaching and setting up courses in Blackboard. I like to keep everything for that week, not just documents, but also all of the assessments, all within a centralized single folder, so it's all in one spot for the students. But to do that, this course documents label really doesn't fit well anymore, because really what I'm providing is not just documents, but actual activities for the student. So I changed the name of this, and we can call this something else. We'll change that. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But that's that assignments area. And so I personally remove assignments. I like to keep them all, keep everything together within like a unit folder. Next, there's a communication link, and this is by default turned on. This shows you all of the communication tools that you have available in Blackboard. There is some redundancy built into Blackboard as far as navigation. So you'll see, for example, that within this communication area, there's a link for the discussion board. You'll notice there's also a discussion board link here in the menu on the left, a direct link to the discussion board. So clicking either of these links gets you to the discussion board, this empty place where you can start to set up discussion forums and such for your students. But again, you could also get to it from either clicking the discussion board link here or within communication, going to discussion board. But these are all of the communication tools that are available here. Ursula, I see you've got a question. Feel free to type it in the text chat area, or I'll go ahead and release the talk button, and you can click on it and ask your question that way if you wish.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you're coming through louder.
Sorry about that. Okay, so on the discussion board, is it necessary to set up a forum that is like, do I have to initiate that, or can that be something that the students themselves start to initiate?
That's a great question. And actually what you need to do is you create the forum initially, and then the students can respond to that. So I'm going to leave this course for just a moment and go back into one of these samples. And so I'm going to go to the discussion board here in this course that I've already set up some sample, what are called forums. And so within that discussion board, any area where you want the students to ask questions, you create what's called a forum. So here you can see I have a forum called Help, where I've put some information about this discussion board. And once I create the forum, all I have to do is create it, and then students can contribute. They can post information there. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this particular bit of text. Just going to copy this description here, and we'll actually create a discussion board, and I'll show you how easy it is to set up, for example, a help forum. But that's a great question, Ursula. You do have to create the forum initially, and then the students can access it, because really they don't have any control other than you have to put that, make it for them to access. So following off of that, so how do you do that? How do you set that up? So let me go back into our sandbox course here, and I'm simply going to go to the discussion board. And here you can see as the instructor, because I'm logged in as the instructor, I have this toolbar here that allows me to create what's called a forum. So this button that says a little plus sign, this is the add forum button. Now your students will never see this, but as the instructor, you have this button. So clicking add forum, I can give my forum a title. So I always have a forum, like I mentioned earlier, that I call help. And I paste in, I always have some information for my students. I tell them if you have a question, this is where you ask your question. We can all benefit from the answer. And then I tell them if they have questions requiring a personal response, they can email me. And I actually put my email address in there. So to show you how you put an email address in a description, for example, I'll just go ahead and type in my email. And then by highlighting notice that Blackboard just made it a link automatically, but you can also highlight it and click the little hyperlink option that will show up after you've highlighted it. Blackboard is smart enough to know that this is an email link, and it makes it an email hyperlink. So if it didn't automatically do that for you, you could select the option here and it would do that. So I put in a name and a description. Then you have a few other options under forum availability. And great question, Ursula. I'll get to that in just a moment about how do I know if the student has asked the question. As far as options here, there's an available. Is it available? Yes or no. Making it available means the students can see it. If you say no, you'll have created this forum, but you'll be the only person that can access it. So you definitely want to make it available. I recommend that you don't adjust these date and time restrictions. The reason these are here is, let's say you wanted to set up a forum for a discussion for week 1 of class, but you didn't want the students to see it until after class that first week. You could actually set a date time that forum automatically turns on to students. If class ends at 2 o'clock, at 2:01, you could actually have the forum turn on for the students. But I just like to leave it, turn it on and off manually yourself using this available option, so then you know for sure that something is on or not, and you're not having to go in and check Blackboard. You have a few settings down here. You can allow anonymous posts. I don't recommend this. You can choose whether or not students can remove their own post after they make it. I generally stick with the defaults that are here within Blackboard, allowing the students to reply to a message. They can attach a file. They can also create a new thread, which is what's called a new topic. Blackboard refers to this kind of discussion as threaded discussion, meaning each topic is referred to as a thread. And so the default settings will basically allow students to do that. And for the most part, the default settings are all you need to worry about. One of the settings that I do turn on, especially for the help forum, and this goes to, Ursula, your question about knowing if it's posted a question or not. I turn on what's called a subscribe option. So there's an option down here that says allow members to subscribe to the forum. I select this, I click the little radio button, and then I also select the option to include the body of the post in the email. So by default in Blackboard, when you create a forum and then students start to discuss it, you'll have to log into Blackboard to see if there are any new posts, and then you can respond to them. And now Blackboard will keep track if you've read them or not. It does a fairly nice job of that. But you do have to log into Blackboard on a frequent basis, like at least once a day, for example, to see if there's anything new, unless you turn on this subscribe option. And what I do, and I don't do this for all my forums, but for my help forum, I turn this on and I subscribe myself to the forum. And what this allows is, by selecting this option to allow members to subscribe to the forum and then include the body of the post in the email, after I create the forum, I subscribe myself to it. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And in doing so, then when a student does post a question or a response, I automatically get that sent to me as an email. So I don't have to log into Blackboard, and I can kind of monitor what's happening without having to log into Blackboard. So again, it's a nice time saver for me. And if I see a question there, I can log in. I'm prompted then to log into Blackboard, and I can respond within Blackboard. So I do get their questions still through email, but it's really on my own terms when I respond to them, and I can respond in a public manner. So that's the subscribe option. So we've turned that on. We've allowed the students to subscribe and included the body in the post. Now for some discussions, especially when it comes to blended or online courses, faculty may want to have grading of forums. So having discussion that's graded. And Blackboard does have the option to turn on grading of a forum where you can set the points possible, and then you can easily grade discussion posts and have that tied to the Grade Center. So I'm not going to show that today unless there's specific interest in that, but that is possible. So for this help forum, I'm going to go ahead and click, and now I've created this help forum or discussion board for my students. And so now if someone wanted to post to this, they would click the help forum, and now they could add what's called the thread. So clicking this button, this is where a student would go and again put in a subject and their message. And just like sending an email, it's really not any more difficult than that. The submit button actually posts it for the entire class to see. Now within the forum, you'll notice that because we turned on the subscription, there's an option here to subscribe. And so as I click on that, now I'm subscribed to this forum. So if I were to go ahead and add a thread, and I'll just say, when is the first exam? So I put in a message subject, and clicking save will save this so I can continue to edit it, but submitting it actually posts it for this. So clicking submit now, here you can see my question. There it is, when is the first exam? I can click on that to view it, and there's the message, and then I could reply at this point. But I've also now received that as an email. So I have that email, and I'll get the message there, and I can then choose to respond. So the subscribing is really helpful in the discussion area. And when that comes in, you get the response, you can view it, and you can log into Blackboard to access it. Now, Blackboard does also keep track of the number of posts, so you can see here that there's one post, and because I've read it, there aren't any unread posts at this point. I can also see as the instructor how many people have participated in that forum thus far. Just to make changes to it, I can copy it either to another course, or I can actually remove it entirely. And so, but yeah, the discussion board is really a nice tool for having students ask those questions. So back to our menu here, and thinking about, again, how we're going to organize our course and structure things. One of the first things that I always do is I go to the control panel when I have a new Blackboard course, and one of the options you'll see under course options is this Manage Course menu. So clicking on that, here you see a listing of all of those links that are in the course menu. So on the left, that bar that you see, that's called the course navigation menu, and this is a listing of all of the items that appear. You'll see the title for each one. For example, here's announcements. And then each one has a title, but then underneath each of these particular items, there is in italics something listed there. And this refers to what does this link actually do. So for example, the announcements link is a link to what's called a course tool link to the announcements tool within Blackboard. Likewise, the staff information link is a link to the area where you can post staff information in Blackboard. Then there are a few of these that say content area. So for example, course information, course documents, and assignments. These are all content areas. And Blackboard uses content area to refer to any place in Blackboard where you can post content. Think of it like a folder. So in your office, you may have a filing cabinet, and you have numerous folders, and each of those folders can contain content. In your Blackboard course, a content area is simply a folder, a place where you can put content for your students. And you can have as many or as few of these areas as you like. There are a couple that I recommend you have. Course information would be one that would be a good idea to have, where you could put that general information about the course. And then this second one, course documents, if there's going to be a time where you're going to post things specific to the course or the way you're structuring the course, you might want to separate those out and put those in course documents. But you may not want to stick with the name course documents. Personally, I find this to be a bit ambiguous and really it's not clear how does course documents differ from course information. So what I like to do is modify course documents. So clicking the course documents button, I can rename this. I can call this anything I want. I could call it weekly materials. I could call it modules. In this case, I'm going to call it units. And I'm going to tell my students that we're going to break the course into units. Maybe in my syllabus, I have things broken down by units, and then that's where they're going to go to find the content. So we're going to call this units, and I'm going to scroll down and click the submit button. So here you can see now in the preview, looking at all these items, that units, it still is a content area. I can still put content there, but we're breaking this down into units. Likewise, there are a few other tools down here. The assignments tool, because I said I'm going to keep all the assignments in the unit folder, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of assignments, so you can actually remove buttons or content areas right here from the menu. Keep the communication discussion board. External links, let's say I'm really not sure that I'm going to need that right now or that I want to leave it there. So I can modify it. Rather than just removing it, you can also hide it from the students. And that's what this option here to make it available for students, participant users. If you check that little box there, that check mark, to deselect that, this will in effect hide that menu item from the students. So notice it now says that it's currently unavailable. So in doing so now, they don't see the external links. And if I go out and click on the title of the course up here in the course navigation, or the breadcrumbs at the top, here we're back out to the front page of the course. You can see that it used to say course documents, now says units. It's emptied out. And also that assignments option is no longer there. And then we also hid the external links. Because it's hid, it just doesn't show up for the students. So we'll go back to the control panel here and back to Manage Course Menu. The other thing that I do, whenever I use Blackboard, I always use the grade feature. I really like the ability to post scores for assignments securely for the students. And so one of the tools I always use in Blackboard, whether it's just to supplement a face-to-face class or when I teach online courses, I always use what's called the Grade Center in Blackboard. And within Blackboard, there is a link for the student back out to the course menu, the front page of the course here. Within Tools, there is a tool in Blackboard called My Grades. Now, this is where the students go to view their personal view of the grade book, or it's called the Grade Center now, since their most recent upgrade. And as an instructor, if I click Tools and My Grades, I get this error message confirming that I don't have the role, in my role as the instructor, I don't have personal grades. But the students, that link, My Grades, takes them to their individual view of the grades that I've posted. So they just see their grades. So in the control panel, when I go to Manage Course Menu, it's a little have to know to click Tools and then My Grades. And so I put in the course menu links to just the things that are most important and the tools that I'm using most in my course. And so one of the tools that I use is the My Grades, the Students My Grades tool. And so I want to put a link to that right in the course menu, so it's very easy for the students to get to that. And in order to do that, I'm going to add what's called a tool link. So in the control panel, when you click Manage Course Menu, there is an option to add a tool link right here. So when I click on that, here you can see that in this drop-down menu, this is a listing of all of the Blackboard tools. And keep in mind, Blackboard really is basically a system that is a suite of different tools that you can pick and choose for your own use in your teaching. So when you add a tool link, you're adding to the menu a link to one of the Blackboard tools that we have available in our Blackboard system. Now, every Blackboard system is a little different in which tools they have available, but one of the tools that's available in all Blackboard systems is the My Grades tool. And this is the student, again, the student link to their own grades. And you can leave the name as My Grades, or you can customize it. You could call it Gradebook or Grade Center. And I could choose to make it available by default. Yes, I want students to see this link in the menu. So I can click the Submit button and then OK. And down at the bottom of my list is My Grades. And I can choose to move it around. So maybe I want it up underneath units. So I want to make it number 5 in the list. I simply, in the little number drop-down box to the left of the name, I simply have to select the number in the list in which I want this to appear. So if I want this to be right under units, number 5, select 5, and now all of the items are reordered to reflect that new order. And there you can see My Grades is listed as number 5. Ursula, your question about noticing that there was a guest access button, and let me bring up one of those pages. So here you can see right now, by default, this course information item has what's called guest access and then observer access. The idea with each of these, and we actually don't have observer access here at Northern, even though that by default is checked. An observer would be more in a K-12 setting where you had a parent that would be able to log in and see the progress of a student. You could allow observer access to only certain parts of your course. So that's what that's referring to. Guest access, we typically don't allow guest access either to Blackboard courses, but this would refer to if you wanted to allow a student that's not enrolled in a class to be able to, as long as they have Blackboard access, be able to find your course and kind of see parts of the course, like maybe let them see the syllabus. And there might be some other aspects of the course where they're not enrolled, but you kind of want to let them get a view of some of the course content. That's where guest access could come into play. And I believe you can allow guest access. That is an option that you can set, but I don't believe many faculty do that. So you could choose to uncheck these, and typically what I do is I uncheck these anyway, even though really leaving them checked doesn't hurt you. But you could uncheck those because basically you just want to allow students or participants in your course to access this content or these links. So we've customized our menu. We've kind of set things up. We have things customized a bit. If I go out to the front page of our course, now you can see, now I've added this link that says My Grades. And if I click it, again, I get an error message as the instructor. Students, this is where they'll go to view their grades. So let me pause for a moment and see if there are any other questions about customizing the course menu, the course navigation menu here as we're getting started. If you have a question, feel free to type your questions in the text chat area or raise your hand. And while we're pausing here, I will point out that under Tools, you'll see currently listed here in my course something called My Portfolios. This is a brand new tool in Blackboard that we're still piloting at Northern, but if you'd like to use this in your teaching, even this fall, drop me an email and I can get you access to the tool. Basically, it allows for students to create an electronic portfolio within Blackboard that can be shared with you as the instructor or with other students. Students can view them within Blackboard. They can export them. It creates a simple web page that they can view and comment on, and it can be used for assessment purposes. So, and this tool is available. It's still being piloted here at Northern with the goal of it being available campus-wide in spring of 2011. But in the meantime, if you'd like to try this tool yourself, we'd love to get you access to that. Just drop me an email, and I'd be happy to request access for you to that tool. But it really is important that you customize this menu to meet your needs. So thinking about the tools that you're going to use, remove the buttons that you're not going to use or hide them, and feel free to customize this. Add the links to the buttons that you are going to use or the features that you are going to use in your course. So that's one of the first things I do is I set up the course structure, the course navigation menu to meet my needs. The second thing I do is then I start to flesh out my structure of the content that I'm going to post in my course. So again, thinking back to how I'm organizing things already. Personally, on my computer, I have a folder on my computer for each course I teach. Then within that folder, I have a units folder, for example, and then I'll have a folder to unit. And then inside that folder has the PowerPoint presentations or the other readings or resources that I want my students to have access to. And I'll set up a folder structure for my students. So, for example, let me show you an existing course right now, and I'm going to log into another Blackboard system where I'm currently teaching a couple of courses, and I have permission to go ahead and share with you from my students the setup of this course. I'm not going to share with you any specific information about the students, but I just want to show you the structure of this course. So in this course, I'm using modules, the term modules, and this is actually a newer version of Blackboard. We'll be upgrading to in the spring, hopefully, for summer of 2011. So this looks a little different. Not to worry. the structure and function is a lot the same. But here you can see my folders, and I did break this course content into modules, and so here are my 4 modules, and so I just labeled them Module 1, 2, 3, 4, along with the subjects that we were talking about in this course. This happens to be a course on learning with technology, and Ursula, you've got a question here. Let me pause and see. Using a master course. Yes. Ursula, your question about using a master course and how that works. Let me come back to that. And since I see you're having some audio issues, we'll wait a moment or two before I respond directly to that in hopes that you'll be able to hear the audio a bit better. Here you can see, though, in the structure I have for this current course I'm teaching, I have a module folder. And then within that folder, this is where I've posted information about this particular course. So I have an overview for the students. I use a podcast introduction for the unit so they can actually click on that and listen to it. I list out the objectives. And then I have 2 folders, 2 subfolders. I have a readings folder and an assignments and discussions. So all of the readings for that week are all listed there. And in this course, again, I'm using some multimedia so they can view those presentations right there. And then also the assignments that they complete, I like to separate those out, but I put those all in a separate folder as well. So that's my consistent structure, and then I replicate that throughout the course in each of the modules that we have. So what I would recommend and what I like to do, and fantastic, Ursula, glad you got the volume figured out, and I'll get back to your question on master courses in just a minute. So within units, what I'll do initially is I'll create a unit folder. So maybe this is going to be Unit 1 and so a place for my topics. And then inside that folder, in the description area, maybe this is where I put the dates of when will we be covering this content. And for right now, I'll go ahead and make this available. And then inside the folder, I'll start to think about, well, how am I going to structure things? Maybe each week I want to list out my, maybe have a quick overview. Or maybe this is going to be, 2 to 3 sentence description of the unit. So maybe I want to have that, and especially when I teach online, I always like to have kind of an overview at the top for my students. And then next, maybe I'm going to list out, maybe I'm going to list some objectives for this particular unit. So maybe I'll have that, and then a place where I'm going to list those out for my students. So there's kind of my placeholder for where I'm going to set this up. And so I go through my course and I kind of build a structure. So my overview, my objectives, I'll list out. Maybe I'm going to have a folder where I'm going to put my my readings. And maybe I'm using some supplemental readings along with the on a textbook. So maybe I'll say supplemental readings are provided here. But anyway, you kind of get the idea that you start to build your structure. And then what I do to save time, once I have one unit set up, I go ahead and I then copy that folder. And by doing a copy, I'm creating a copy that then replicates and is provided then in all of the folders that I have. And I can continue to, all the folders within that folder, I'll copy as well. So here within my guest course, I just have to say where I want to copy this folder to. So I want to keep it in units, and I don't want to remove it after I copy it. And so this is actually going to make a carbon copy of my Unit 1 folder that has that same structure all laid out. And so what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll do, when the first folder kind of set up with the structure, is I'll go ahead and do this same copying, and I'll repeat it as many times as I have folders, or as I have units for the course. so however you're structuring things. And then I'll go back through and then I'll modify this. So I'll then go, and it's easier just to make the changes to the folders after I set them up. So here's you. I'd put the topics in, adjust the dates. And then what I'll do is I'll choose to hide it from my students. So where it says make the content available, I'll select the no option. So in doing so now, that folder is hidden from the students. So you see that it's grayed out in this what's called the edit view. So if I go ahead and modify, I'm going to modify this third folder as well, and I'm going to make it unavailable too. So here you can see I have all three of my unit folders, but only this first one has the folder icon is visible. So if I go out now and if I click on the units link in my menu, all that I see is the student, and this is what's called the display view or the student view. All that is seen is that first folder. They can go in there and they can access that content. But if you click on edit view, and this is how I like to edit the folders and the content, is simply navigating to, for example, this units area of my course. And if I click edit view, now here I can see all of the content that I have access to as the instructor, and I can make things available, move them around. What I like to do is I always put the current folder at the top. So let's say it's time for Module 2 to begin. I'll go in and make Module 2 available to the students simply by editing it, clicking under Options to make it available, yes, and clicking the Submit button. And now if I click Display View to, again, preview this, now the newest folder is at the top. And so this helps cut down on scrolling for the students. This is just my personal preference. As let's say you had 16 units, by week 16, there would be a lot of scrolling to have to get to that current folder. So I always keep the most current unit folder at the top of my list. So if you're planning to use Blackboard to post content for your students, I recommend that you set up a structure, consistent, some folders, and just decide what am I going to put there. And maybe you're not going to have all of these items. Maybe there's only going to be some notes from class that week. But have a consistent structure that each week the students know where to find whatever it is you're posting, so that it's not just one big long list of files, but structure that in a way that makes sense to you and makes sense to your students. Back to Ursula, to your question about, and you ask, you're using a master course, and you're hoping that that transferred to the other sections. Let me share with you how the master course process works. So if you're at NIU's Blackboard, or if you're at the NIU website, and I'm just going to head there now and show you that when you go to the A to Z index on the NIU website, and if you go to B for Blackboard, there are two Blackboard links. One is the Blackboard server, and that's what you use, obviously, to log in to Blackboard. The second is the Teaching with Blackboard site. And this is a really great site to bookmark or to be aware of. This site, our office puts this together and maintains this as a place to find information specifically on how you teach with Blackboard, and a lot of great links to tutorials and quick guides and other items here. There is a Blackboard A to Z index that has information about, and this is where we kind of provide you an index of all the information and resources that are here. And we do have an area about master courses. I'm not sure that we call it master courses anymore. I think we refer to it as multiple course sections. But the idea here is that let's say you're teaching several sections of the course, or nowadays when a course is offered for both graduate and undergraduate credit, the way our MyNIU system works, that course has to be listed with two different course numbers. So as a result, you as the faculty member, when you request those courses in Blackboard, you have two different sections. Even though maybe you have one student that's taking that course for graduate credit, you'll actually have two Blackboard courses by default when you request them, unless you set up what's called a master course. And this is what, Ursula, what you're referring to. And this page here, this master course or multiple course section page, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll put this link here in the text chat area so that you all in that as well. You can open this up and take a look after the session here today. But this outlines kind of the process. Basically, you go through, and when you request your course, when you go through the course request process, there's an option there to request a master course. And you basically pick one of your sections to be the master course, and then you pair any of the other sections with that. And what Blackboard does then is it merges your enrollments from all of your sections, whichever sections you select, into that single Blackboard course shell or course section. So let's say you're teaching 3 sections of the same course, and you pick section 1 to be the course that it was going to be the master course. Blackboard will combine all of the from all 3 of your Blackboard courses, those sections, into that single Blackboard site course. And then you would simply, that's the one Blackboard course where you would post content, post grades, and so forth for all the students. You do that in a single Blackboard course site. And then you don't have to do copying from one to the other. You simply put that all in a single course. Now, this is different institutions handle these multiple sections a little bit differently, but that's how we do it here at Northern. And so when you request your courses for fall, there is an option to do a request. It's called a master course. So in Blackboard, if you go to the Services tab, and I'll show you where this is, under Services, we have what's called Blackboard Faculty. This is a custom function of Blackboard that we have here at Northern, which allows you to not only request a new course, but request and manage a master course. And this is where you'd pick the term, and I don't believe I have any listed here, but you'd select the term, you'd click Submit, and then any courses that you are listed as the instructor of record for would show up. So you'd select the course that you had a master course, you'd then be prompted to select the other courses you want paired with it, and that request would be processed within a day or so, and then they'd all be combined for you. The key in doing this, Ursula, is that you make sure that the other sections that you combine, that you always keep those unavailable, meaning that the students that are technically in those other sections will never see those in Blackboard. They'll only see the master section that you have combined them into when you make that available. So speaking of making courses available, once you have the course set up in Blackboard, you can, going back to the course here, you have to make it what's called available. So if I go back to the front page for a moment, you see I have a course right here, Model Blended Course Template. It's set to be unavailable. Here's another one as well. Unavailable means I can get to it as an instructor, but it's invisible to the students. So after you have your course set up and you want to let the students in, flip the switch, so to speak, you simply have to go into the course. And so I'm going to go into Guest Course 40, which I've been working in today, and go Control Panel. And there is, under Course Options, there is a link for Settings. One of the settings that you have is the course availability. And again, this just turns it on or off. It's a single option here. Make the course available. Yes or no, you have to make sure you select yes and click the Submit button and then OK. And that, in essence, turns your course to your students. So with that, now I'm going to go ahead and end sharing for a moment and go back here to come back here to the slides that we have in Wimba. And I'm going to pause and just see what other questions do you have. We have about 11 minutes or so left here today. I obviously don't have time to get into depth on all of the features, but if there's one tool in particular that you'd like to hear a little more about, or if you have specific questions yet here about Blackboard, you can either type those in the text chat area, or if you have a mic, raise your hand and ask that question. And I'll try to answer those questions here yet in the time that we have available. So Ursula, you asked about assignments. Sure, I do believe I have time to share with you. So maybe we'll make that the one additional tool that we'll take a look at and then we'll wrap things up here today. So let me go back into application sharing. It'll take me just a moment to re-enable this. All right, so you should now see my screen. And again, if you could just click the little check mark button to confirm that you can see my screen, that'd be great. Very good. So assignments. The idea with assignments, Ursula, would be that you want to collect student work electronically, and you don't want to have to deal with getting work sent through email and having those emails lost or having to keep track of it. And so the assignment tool in Blackboard is a tool that allows you to electronically collect work from the students. So let's say I'm going to set this up, and let's say in Unit 1 of my course, I'm going to have my students complete an assignment. What I typically would do is, in this structure that I have here, I'm going to go to Edit View. I'm in Unit 1. And I could just have those assignments listed here. Maybe I have a couple of them. I might want to put them in a folder called Assignments, where I'd have listed. But for the sake of time, we're just going to add one here at this level so you can see what that process is like. So in Blackboard, when you're in what's called the Edit View, again, you have this toolbar at the top that's kind of your reminder, confirmation that you're in what's called Edit View. Again, your students don't ever see this. They don't ever have this toolbar. They can't add it here. But you'll notice that there are some buttons here in this toolbar. So you can add an item, which is just a piece of content with some text. You can add a folder, which we've already done. You can add other types of content, like an external link would be a link to another website, also a course link, and you can add a test. Well, you'll notice that there's then this down pick lists, and these are additional types of items or tools that you can add. And there's really no rhyme or reason as to why some of these are listed here as buttons in the menu and some are in the drop-down pick list menu here. Other than the only thing I can figure is that Blackboard just started running out of room. And so the students, or Blackboard, had to put them somewhere, had to put these tools somewhere. So they listed them here. So I'm going to go ahead, and one of the types of items that you can add in a folder within Blackboard is called an assignment. And Blackboard's using the term assignment to refer to this type of activity where the students are going to submit something electronically. Blackboard is going to collect it. It's going to keep track of all of that for you, time and date stamp it, make it possible for you to download that from Blackboard, and then add feedback to the student, perhaps submit a revised version of that file and a score, and do that all very neatly within the Grade Center in Blackboard. So that's what's called an assignment. There's also something called a safe assignment. And the only difference, a safe assignment, when you receive that from the students, you also receive an originality report where Blackboard does a check for plagiarism, and it checks the internet and ProQuest and several other sources and flags any suspicious looking work that your students might submit. So a safe also gives you that originality report. And we actually have a whole separate workshop and can get into more depth on the difference between the two if you'd like. So let's create an assignment. So we click the assignment, and then you have to click this Go button to actually invoke that tool and to have that added. So, and we could call this, perhaps this is going to be Homework 1. And you get assignment a title. You put in, how many points is it worth? And you also can choose, if you want, to have a due date listed. And this is kind of nice for the students so they see that due date. Maybe this is going to be due tomorrow. So I can pick the date for tomorrow. And then that will show up for the students in Blackboard. Also now I can put in some instructions. And this is where you could copy and paste. If you already have these in Word, for example, you could copy and paste them here. But this is where you'd give the students some instructions about the assignment. You can then also choose, if you wish, to attach a file, an assignment file with the assignment. And this would be perhaps a template. So I know of English faculty, for example, that will, there's a writing assignment to students. They may want to provide the students a template, a Word template that has the correct headings, the margins set properly. So you can provide template files for the students You could also actually have homework type problems that are maybe in a file. You could just attach that here for the students and give them instructions to download the homework files, for example. We're not going to attach anything at this point, but you could do that. Making it available, and then you have some options down here. Is this assignment going to be available to the students? You can choose when it becomes available. So again, if you wanted this to automatically turn on after class a certain day and you want to only give the students until the start of class, and then they no longer can turn things in, you can impose date and time restrictions here. But for the sake of time, we'll just leave all the defaults like they are and click Submit. Now when you do that, two things happen. Not only is this homework now listed here, this assignment, so if I click Display View, the homework 1 is listed. Here's where those instructions would go, and then here's a link to complete it. So clicking either the title or this link to complete will bring up this window where students can put in comments, they can attach their file, and then they can submit it to you. The second thing that happened when we added that is in the control panel, if you go to the Grade Center, Blackboard added for you a column called Homework 1 that was the same title as the name of that assignment. When students submit their assignments, they'll show up here in the Grade Center. There'll be a little exclamation mark icon for each student when they turn it in, and you'll be able to click on that, and you can go to grade details and view their work. You can also, in Blackboard, you can download all of the files that are submitted in kind of a batch file. So it'll download them all in a zip file to your computer. You can then unpackage that and have all of those files for viewing offline. And there's a lot more we could get into about assignments and how they all work. But in a nutshell, that's how you can go about setting them up. They're very easy to set up. And grading, I use assignments quite a bit in my own teaching and find them to be very helpful in collecting student work and papers and so forth, and then returning them to the students. Daniel, your question about in the control panel under Grade Center, are your students' names automatically generated? And they are. Here at Northern, one of the beautiful things about how our Blackboard system works is twice a day, Blackboard synchronizes with MyNIU. And so if a student in your course today, by the end of as long as they do it, by midday or so, by the end of the day, they will automatically show up in your Blackboard Grade Center. They'll automatically be listed there. And likewise, if a student drops your course, the same thing will happen. They'll be removed automatically. So you don't have to copy in names or manually add them. It's an automated that once you request your Blackboard course, the students will automatically show up in your Grade Center for you. So that's a great question. Any other questions? As we prepare to wrap things up here, I'm going to go ahead and end the application sharing. I do want to point out that we do have, we always have upcoming workshops. If you'd like to learn more about Blackboard, any specific aspect of Blackboard, we have a variety of workshops coming up, and you can always find the current list of workshops at the Faculty Development website. I've already mentioned the Teaching with Blackboard site, and if you want, it's easy to remember, niu.edu/Blackboard. This is the site I shared with you earlier, had information about the multiple course sections, for example. This is really a great place to look for answers to questions that you might have. I do want to reiterate that the archive for today will be available online. We archive all of our online faculty development programs, workshops, and so this session is being archived, and I will send out the link to it later today. But you can also, here's the directory for that. You can find it on our faculty development site under programs, our list of archives, and you can view all of our past archives. They're also available in iTunes. So if you have iTunes on your computer, or if you have a mobile device like an iPod or an iPhone, and you'd like to download the video from this session and actually be able to view this on your mobile device, you can search for NIU Faculty Development in iTunes and subscribe to our program archives. And then anytime we have an online workshop, your iTunes will download the archive and you'll have access to that. I will put up my contact information again, so if after the session today you have more questions, you'd like to follow up, you'd like to maybe set up a one-on-one appointment to kind of get you started in your own course, I'd be happy to meet with you as we get ready for the fall. And I'm finally, I'm going to push out to everybody an evaluation. This is going to open in a new window. And if you could just take a moment before you leave today to complete this program evaluation, just to give us feedback on what you liked about the session today, and in particular, your takeaway program today. Your feedback is very helpful to us and helps us as we plan future workshops. So with that, after you complete the evaluation, you can feel free to leave. Thank you so much for joining us today for the session. And again, I'll be sending out an email this afternoon with links to the archives. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.